Yes, Lucy Letby has been found guilty of the attempted murder of a baby. You might remember that last August she was convicted of the murder of 7 babies, the attempted murder of 6 others. The jury at that trial was unable to reach a verdict on this count, and this retrial has been taking place, and the jury, who were only sent out this morning at about 11:30, have returned with their verdict that Lucy Letby is guilty of attempted murder of that other child. This trial has heard that she was working, as she did in all of these cases, as a neonatal nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital one evening of February 2016, and was dealing with a baby, an extremely premature baby known throughout this trial as baby K, a baby who was barely 2 hours old when she came into contact with Lucy Letby. And the prosecution said that Lucy Letby tried to kill that baby by dislodging a breathing tube that she relied on. The prosecution saying she was caught virtually red-handed, they said during this trial, when a consultant paediatrician, Dr. Ravi Jairam, went into that room, saw that the baby's blood oxygen levels were dropping to dangerously low levels, and saw Lucy Letby, in the words of the prosecution, doing nothing, standing by that incubator. The alarms that should have been sounding weren't sounding, and from the evidence of Dr. Ravi Jairam, as I say, Lucy Letby doing nothing. Now, there were 2 further incidents that night with the tube dislodged. The prosecution said that was an attempt by Lucy Letby to make it look as if the baby was habitually dislodging that tube itself to cover her tracks, in effect having been caught by Dr. Jairam. The baby herself was later transferred to a specialist neonatal unit and died 3 days later. Now, the prosecution said in this trial they didn't allege that Lucy Letby's actions were responsible for baby K's death, but that she had tried to kill her on that night in February 2016. And at that point, according to that previous trial, she'd already killed 5 babies and would go on to kill 2 more after this incident. The jury had been told about those previous convictions, in the words of the prosecution, not to show that she was guilty of this case, but to show that the intent that was on her mind, potentially in her mind at the time of this incident. We also know that she had carried out Facebook searches for this baby's family, as she had done with other families, other babies that she'd been convicted of killing. Now, Lucy Letby, throughout this trial, said she had no recollection of these events, but she said she wouldn't have done something like this to a baby. She said in this trial that she wasn't guilty of all that she'd been found guilty of in the previous trial, but it's taken the jury barely a couple of hours of deliberation to find her guilty of the attempted murder of baby K. And this is the background to the Lucy Letby case.
The moment Lucy Letby was led away from her home by police, the woman who is the most prolific serial child killer in modern British history.
Take a seat in there for me, Lucy.
An experienced nurse with responsibility for some of the smallest and most vulnerable, who used her position instead to murder 7 of the babies in her care. She'd already been convicted of also attempting to murder 6 others, one of them twice. Now a jury has convicted her of trying to kill yet another baby. It happened here in the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital. The jury shown this video tour to understand its layout.
This used to be nursery 1, also coined the hot room. This is where the sickest patients were brought.
It was in this room Letby displaced the breathing tube of an extremely premature baby girl, barely 2 hours old. The jury was told she was caught virtually red-handed by consultant Ravi Jairam, walking in on her as the baby suffered a life-threatening collapse. But Letby doing nothing. The alarms that should have been sounding were silent. The child, identified as baby K, was transferred to another hospital and died days later. The prosecution didn't allege Letby's action had caused her death. The motivation for Letby's actions remains unclear. Prosecutors at her original trial said she enjoyed playing God, enjoyed the drama of efforts to save babies she'd attacked. A public inquiry into events at the Countess of Chester Hospital through 2015 and 2016 will begin to hear evidence in September. It will investigate the conduct of staff at the hospital and the culture in the wider NHS. What Lucy Letby did was a cruel, calculated, cynical campaign of child murder, the judge said. She was already sentenced to spend the rest of her life in prison. The families of the babies she attacked condemned to life sentences of their own. Greg Milam, Sky News, Manchester Crown Court.
Now, I can tell you when that verdict was handed down a few minutes ago, the family of baby Kay extremely emotional in court after, of course, what they've been through in this trial and the previous trial as well. Lucy Letby will be sentenced for this offence on Friday, July the 5th. Of course, she is already serving 14 whole life orders as a result of that previous trial for the 7 murders of babies that she was convicted of, 6 attempted murders, one of those 2 attempts on the life of 1 baby. Now she'll be sentenced for the attempted murder of this 7th child as well. The prosecutor, Nick Johnson, KC, in summing this case up in the last couple of days, said to the jury that Lucy Letby was sly, devious and calculating. He said she was an extraordinary person and not in a good way. And he read out what he called that terrible list of the victims, those very young victims, some of them hours, days old, who lost their lives because of what he said was her murderous handiwork, that she took pleasure in referencing those Facebook searches, looking for the families of those who died. In the first trial, Mr. Justice Goss, who will sentence her on Friday, said what she did was premeditated, calculated and cunning, and the majority of those babies suffered acute pain. He will sentence her on Friday once again. But as I say, we already knew that Lucy Letby would spend the rest of her life in prison, but she will now be sentenced for this further guilty verdict of attempted murder of a young baby.